The phone slipped from my hand, clattering onto the hardwood floor of my San Francisco apartment, the screen still glowing with the message I'd just sent. My heart stopped, not from the fall, but from the horrifying realization that I'd sent that photo, the one meant for a private chat with a guy from Grindr, to Lucas, my straight best friend of 7 years. The image, raw and unfiltered, was now sitting in his inbox, and there was no undoing it. I stared at the screen, my pulse hammering in my ears. Lucas, with his easy grin and unshakable loyalty, had been my rock through college, my confidant through every heartbreak, and the one person I swore I'd never cross a line with. We'd shared late-night tacos, laughed over bad horror movies, and even survived a road trip to Vegas where he drunkenly sung karaoke to ABBA. But this was a mistake that could unravel everything. I scrambled to type a follow-up, fingers shaking. OMG. Lucas, I'm so sorry. That was an accident. Please delete it. I hit send, my stomach churning. The 3 dots of his reply appeared almost instantly, and I braced myself for the worst: disgust, anger, or, worse, silence. But when his message popped up, it wasn't what I expected. Dude, chill. It's all good. You're still you. My heart stopped again, this time for a different reason. Was he okay with it? Or was this just Lucas being Lucas? Brushing off my chaos with his usual nonchalance, I sank onto my couch, the city's hum filtering through the open window. San Francisco's fog was rolling in, cloaking the Golden Gate Bridge in a dreamy haze. But my mind was a storm. Lucas and I had met freshman year at UC Berkeley, bonding over a mutual hatred of our econ professor's droning lectures. He was the golden boy, athletic, charming, with a smile that could disarm anyone. I was the artsy one, always sketching in notebooks, my queerness an open secret that never seemed to faze him. When I came out to him sophomore year, he just shrugged and said, "Cool, man. Want to grab pizza?" That was Lucas, uncomplicated, steady, safe. But this photo wasn't safe. It was reckless, intimate, a glimpse into a part of me I'd kept carefully separate from our friendship. I'd always been cautious around him, hyper-aware of the unspoken boundary. Sure, I noticed the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed or how his hand lingered on my shoulder during late-night talks. But I'd buried those thoughts. He was straight. End of story. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Lucas. "You okay? You're probably freaking out, RN." I laughed. A shaky, nervous sound. He knew me too well. I typed back, "Yeah, mortified. Can we pretend this never happened?" His reply came fast, "Already forgotten?" But, like, "You good?" I stared at the words, warmth spreading through my chest. He wasn't mad. He wasn't ghosting me. But something about his tone, casual yet deliberate, made my mind spiral. Why wasn't he weirded out? Why did he care if I was okay? I paced my tiny apartment, the exposed brick walls closing in. The photo wasn't just a mistake. It was a crack in the wall I'd built to keep my feelings in check. I'd never admitted it, not even to myself. But Lucas was more than a friend. He was the one person who made me feel seen. Not as Bentley the artist or Bentley the gay guy, but just Bentley. And now, I'd blown it. The next morning, I woke to a text from him. Coffee at Blue Bottle, 10 a.m. My stomach flipped. He wanted to see me. In person. After that, I typed sure before I could overthink it. But dread and hope waged war in my chest. What if he looked at me differently now? What if that easy, unshakable Lucas was gone? I arrived at the cafe early, the scent of roasted beans grounding me as I claimed a corner table. The place was alive with the clink of mugs and the murmur of conversations, hipsters typing on laptops, a couple laughing over pastries. I fidgeted with my sketchbook, doodling aimless lines, when Lucas walked in. He was effortlessly himself, dark jeans, a fitted leather jacket, his hair slightly messy from the morning breeze. His eyes found mine, and he grinned, that same grin that had always felt like home. "Hey, disaster," he teased, sliding into the seat across from me. My face burned, but I forced a laugh. "Yeah, I win at screwing up." He leaned back, sipping his coffee, his gaze steady but unreadable. "You didn't screw up. Bent. Accidents happen." His voice was soft, almost too soft, and it sent a shiver down my spine. I wanted to ask what he meant, why he was so calm, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, we talked about everything else, his new job at a tech startup, my latest art commission, the Warriors game we'd planned to watch. It was normal, too normal, like the photo had never happened. But every time his hand brushed mine when he passed me a sugar packet, or when his eyes lingered a second too long, my heart raced. Was I imagining it, or was something shifting? That night, alone in my apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. Lucas hadn't flinched, hadn't pulled away. If anything, he seemed closer. I opened my sketchbook, my pencil moving on instinct, tracing the lines of his face, the curve of his jaw, the warmth in his eyes. I'd drawn him before, but never like this, never with this ache in my chest. I closed the book, my heart pounding. I was falling for him, and there was no going back. The days after the coffee meetup blurred into a haze of overthinking. Every text from Lucas felt like a puzzle piece, each word scrutinized for hidden meaning. "You free this weekend?" he'd asked, casual as ever. But my mind spun it into something more. Was he checking on me out of pity? Or was there something else? I hated how the photo had turned me into this paranoid version of myself, second-guessing a friendship that had always been effortless. By Friday, I convinced myself to let it go. Lucas was just being a good friend, nothing more. I threw myself into my art, locking myself in my apartment with a canvas and a playlist of moody indie tracks. My latest commission was a mural for a local queer community center, a vibrant explosion of colors celebrating identity and resilience. Painting usually grounded me, but every stroke felt like a confession, each hue bleeding with the chaos of my feelings for Lucas. My phone buzzed mid-brushstroke. A photo from Lucas, him at Golden Gate Park, sprawled on a picnic blanket with a goofy grin, a frisbee tucked under his arm. "Missed you at the park today," the caption read. My chest tightened. He invited me to join him and some co-workers, but I bailed, claiming a deadline. The truth was, I wasn't ready to face him again, not with my heart doing backflips every time he smiled. I typed back, "Looks fun. Next time," but before I could hit send, another message popped up. "You've been weird since the photo thing. Talk to me." Ben, my breath caught. He'd noticed. Of course he had. Lucas always noticed when I was off, like the time I bombed a gallery pitch and he'd shown up with ice cream and a terrible rom-com to cheer me up. But this wasn't a bad day I could laugh off. This was me, teetering on the edge of a truth I wasn't ready to face. I called him, my hands trembling as the line rang. "Hey," he answered, his voice warm but tinged with concern. "You good?" "No," I admitted, the words spilling out before I could stop it. "I'm freaking out. Lucas, that photo, it wasn't just a mistake. It's messing with my head." Silence stretched on the other end, and I panicked, filling it with a rush of words. "I didn't mean to make things weird. You're my best friend, and I'd die if I lost that. But I can't stop thinking about." "Slow down," he cut in, gentle but firm. "You're not losing me. Ever. Can we talk in person? I'm coming over." He hung up before I could protest, leaving me staring at my paint-splattered hands, my heart a wild drumbeat. 20 minutes later, he was at my door, still in his park clothes, athletic shorts, and a fitted tee that showed off his runner's build. His hair was a mess, his cheeks flushed from the chilly evening air. "Okay," he said, stepping inside, his eyes searching mine. "What's going on in that head of yours?" I paced the small living room, the canvas looming behind me like a witness. "I crossed the line," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "That photo, it's not just about the accident. It's about me. About how I feel." I stopped, my throat tight. I couldn't say it. Not yet. Lucas leaned against the wall, his expression unreadable but soft. "Bent, you're my best friend. Nothing you say or do is going to change that. Not a photo, not anything." He stepped closer, his hand brushing my arm, and I froze. The touch was familiar, but it carried a weight I'd never felt before. "You're freaking out because you think you've messed this up," he said. "But you haven't." I promise. I wanted to believe him, but the air between us crackled with something new, something dangerous. "Lucas, you don't get it," I said, my voice breaking. "I'm scared because I think I'm falling for you." The words hung there, raw and exposed, like one of my paintings. His eyes widened, just for a second, before his face softened into something I couldn't read. "Bent," he said quietly, his voice steady but laced with emotion. "I don't know what to say to that. But I'm not going anywhere." He reached out, pulling me into a hug, his arms strong and familiar. I melted into it, my face pressed against his shoulder, breathing in the faint scent of his cologne. It wasn't an answer, but it was enough for now. We stayed like that for a long time, the city's pulse humming outside. We pulled back. His hand lingered on my shoulder, his eyes searching mine. "Let's just take it one step at a time." "Yeah," he said. I nodded, my heart still racing, but steadier now. One step at a time. I could do that. Maybe. That night, after he left, I sat at my canvas, painting with a new intensity. The colors were bolder, the lines sharper, as if my confession had unlocked something. But the fear lingered. I'd told him the truth, and he hadn't run. But what did that mean? Was he just being kind? Or was there a chance, however small, that he felt something too? The confession hung over me like San Francisco's fog, heavy and inescapable. I laid my heart bare to Lucas, and though he hadn't rejected me, he hadn't exactly reciprocated either. His one step at a time echoed in my mind, a lifeline and a question mark. For the next week, I threw myself into my mural, painting late into the night, each stroke a way to process the uncertainty. But Lucas was still there, texting, calling, inviting me to trivia night at a bar in the Mission District. It was as if nothing had changed, yet everything had. Trivia night was a blur of neon lights and laughter. The bar packed with a mix of tech bros and artists. Lucas was in his element, cracking jokes and high-fiving our team when we nailed a question about 80s pop culture. I watched him, trying to reconcile the guy tossing back a beer with the one who'd held me so tightly in my apartment. His ease made me question everything. Was I reading too much into his kindness? Was I setting myself up for heartbreak? Earth to Bentley, he said, nudging my shoulder. His grin was infectious, and I couldn't help but smile back. You're zoning out. Too much IPA. I laughed, shaking my head. Just thinking. He raised an eyebrow, leaning closer. About what? His voice was low, teasing, but there was a flicker of something deeper in his eyes. I shrugged, deflecting. Art stuff. He didn't push, but his gaze lingered, and I felt that familiar pull in my chest. Later, as we walked back to my place, the city alive with late-night energy, he broke the silence. You've been different since the other night, he said, his hands shoved in his pockets. Not bad different. Just quieter. I stopped walking, the streetlights casting long shadows. I'm scared. Lucas, I admitted. I told you how I feel, and I don't know where we stand. It's killing me. He turned to face me, his expression serious. I've been thinking about it, he said. About you. About us. My heart lurched. Us was a word I'd never dared to attach to him. I don't have all the answers, he continued, but I know I care about you. More than I've ever cared about anyone. His words were careful, measured, but they hit like a tidal wave. I wanted to ask what he meant, but before I could, he stepped closer, his hand brushing mine. Can we just see where this goes? He asked. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. We walked the rest of the way in silence, but his hand stayed close to mine, our fingers brushing with every step. It wasn't a declaration of love, but it was something, a spark, a possibility. For the first time, I let myself hope. The next day, I was back at the community center, adding final touches to the mural. The design was coming to life, a kaleidoscope of figures embracing, their faces radiant with pride. As I worked, my phone buzzed with a text from Lucas, a photo of us from trivia night, our heads close together, laughing. Good times, he wrote. I smiled, my heart lighter than it had been in weeks. But hope is a fragile thing. That evening, I got a call from my sister, Mia, who lived in Oakland. She'd heard about the photo incident. Apparently, I let it slip during a wine-fueled rant, and she wasn't subtle. Bent, you're setting yourself up for pain, she said. He's straight. You can't change that. Her words stung, echoing my deepest fears. I wanted to argue, to tell her about the way Lucas looked at me, the way his hand lingered. But doubt crept in. Was I seeing what I wanted to see? I didn't tell Lucas about Mia's call, but wait on me. The next time we hung out, a hike in Mare County, the trails lush with spring green, I was quieter, more guarded. He noticed. Of course. You're doing that thing again, he said, pausing on the trail. Shutting me out, I sighed, kicking a pebble. I'm just scared of getting hurt, I admitted. This feels too good to be true. He looked at me, his eyes soft but intense. I'm scared too, he said. This is new for me. Bent. I've never felt like this about a guy. But I'm here. I'm trying. My breath caught. It wasn't a promise, but it was honest, raw. I reached for his hand, and he didn't pull away. We stood there, hands clasped, the forest quiet around us. And for a moment, the world felt right. Lucas's admission on the trail changed everything. I've never felt like this about a guy. Those words replayed in my mind, a melody I couldn't shake. We didn't talk about it again that day, but the air between us was different, charged, like the moment before a storm. We spent the rest of the hike laughing, stealing glances, our hands brushing more often than accidental. By the time we got back to the city, I was dizzy with possibility. But possibility is a double-edged sword. The more I let myself hope, the louder Mia's warning echoed. Lucas was exploring something new, but what if it was just a phase? What if he woke up one day and decided this wasn't for him? I tried to push the thoughts away, focusing on the present, on the way he texted me good night with a heart emoji, on the way he'd started calling me bent with a warmth that felt intimate. A week later, we planned a night out at a rooftop bar in Soma, the kind of place with fairy lights and overpriced cocktails. I wore a fitted navy blazer, hoping to look effortlessly cool, but my nerves were a mess. Lucas showed up in a leather jacket, his hair tousled just right, and I forgot how to breathe. "You clean up nice," he said, his grin teasing but his eyes soft. I laughed, trying to play it cool. "You're not so bad yourself." The night was perfect, music pulsing, the city skyline glittering below us. We danced, our bodies closer than they'd ever been, his hand resting on my waist. It wasn't just friendly anymore, it was deliberate, electric. When he leaned in to whisper something over the music, his breath warm against my ear, I felt my knees weaken. "Your trouble, Bentley," he said, his voice low. I grinned, my heart racing. "You have no idea," but the high didn't last. Halfway through the night, I caught him staring at his phone, his brow furrowed. "Everything okay?" I asked. He hesitated, then pocketed the phone. "Yeah, just work stuff." I didn't believe him, but I let it go. Later, as we walked to his car, he was quieter, distracted. The doubt I'd been fighting crept back, sharper now. Was he pulling away? Had I misread everything? The next morning, I woke to a text from him, "Need to talk." "Can I come over?" My stomach dropped. Those words never meant anything good. When he arrived, he looked tired. His usual spark dimmed. "What's wrong?" I asked, bracing myself. He sat on my couch, running a hand through his hair. "I got a text from my ex last night," he said. "Jess. She wants to meet up, talk things over." Jess was his college girlfriend, the one he dated for 2 years before they'd split amicably. I'd always known she was important to him, but hearing her name now felt like a punch. "What does that mean for you?" I asked, my voice steady despite the panic rising in my chest. "I don't know," he admitted. "I thought I was over her, but it's complicated." He looked at me, his eyes pleading for understanding. "I'm not saying I want her back. I need to figure this out. And I don't want to hurt you while I do." My heart sank, but I nodded. "I get it," I said, though every part of me wanted to scream. "Take your time." He reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. "You're still my best friend, Bent. That doesn't change." But as he left, I felt the ground shift beneath me. Best friend. The words felt like a demotion. I threw myself back into my art. The mural nearly complete now. The community center was buzzing with volunteers, and I found solace in their energy, their stories of love and struggle. One of them, a trans woman named Elena, caught me staring at the mural with a faraway look. "You okay?" "Han," she asked. I shook my head, the truth spilling out before I could stop it. I told her about Lucas, the photo, the confession, the ex. She listened, her eyes kind but fierce. "You deserve someone who's all in," she said. "Don't settle for half." Her words stuck with me, but they didn't make it easier. I wanted Lucas to be all in, but I couldn't force him. All I could do was wait and paint. The mural became my outlet. Each brushstroke a way to hold onto myself while the uncertainty gnawed at me. Lucas texted me later that day. "A simple miss you." I stared at the words, torn between hope and fear. Was he missing me as a friend? Or as something more? And could I handle either answer? Waiting for Lucas to figure things out was torture. Every day felt like walking a tightrope, balancing hope against the fear of falling. I kept busy, finalizing the mural and helping with the community center's grand opening. But he was always there, lingering in the back of my mind. His texts were sporadic but warm, little lifelines that kept me tethered to him. "Thinking of you," he'd write, or "saw this mural downtown and thought of your art." Each message was a spark, but it wasn't enough to light the way forward. The community center opening was a burst of color and joy. The mural unveiled to cheers and tears. I stood in the crowd, watching strangers embrace the art I'd pour my heart into, and for a moment, I felt whole. Elena found me, her smile radiant. "You did this," she said, squeezing my arm. "You made something beautiful." I wanted to believe her, but the ache in my chest reminded me of what was still unresolved. Lucas showed up late, just as the speeches were wrapping up. He looked out of place in his tech bro hoodie among the glitter and pride flags. But his smile was pure Lucas, warm, grounding. "This is incredible." "Bent," he said, standing in front of the mural. "You're incredible." His words hit hard, and I wanted to ask him what he meant, what we meant. But the crowd swept us into a group photo, and the moment passed. After the event, we ended up at a diner, sharing a plate of fries like old times. But it wasn't old times. The air between us was heavy, charged with everything unsaid. So I said, poking at a fry, "Have you figured things out?" My voice was casual, but my heart was pounding. He sighed, leaning back in the booth. "I met with Jess," he said. My stomach twisted, but I nodded, urging him to go on. "She wanted to get back together. Said she missed me." He paused, his eyes locked on mine. But I told her no. It didn't feel right. Not anymore. I blinked, hope flickering despite my best efforts to keep it in check. "Why not?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He leaned forward, his hands clasped on the table. "Because of you," he said. "I can't stop thinking about you." Bent. About us. I don't know what I'm doing, and it scares the hell out of me. But I want to try. With you. My heart stopped, then surged, a tidal wave of emotion crashing over me. I reached for his hand, and he didn't pull away. His fingers laced with mine, warm and steady, and for the first time, I let myself believe this could be real. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Lucas was cautious but open, letting me in bit by bit. We went on what felt like dates, movies, walks along the Embarcadero, late-night talks on my rooftop. Each moment was a step closer, a tentative dance towards something neither of us fully understood. He was still Lucas, funny, loyal, a little reckless, but there was a new vulnerability in him, a willingness to explore this uncharted territory with me. But doubt lingered, a shadow I couldn't shake. One night, as we sat on my couch, his head resting on my shoulder, I asked the question that had been haunting me. What if this is just curiosity for you? I said, what if you wake up one day and realize you're not into this? Into me? He pulled back, his eyes serious. I've asked myself that, he admitted. I don't have a roadmap for this. Bent. But I know how I feel when I'm with you. It's real. It's more real than anything I've ever felt. He cupped my face, his thumb brushing my cheek, and I leaned into his touch, my fears melting under the weight of his honesty. We kissed then, for the first time, soft and tentative, but full of promise. It wasn't just a kiss, it was a beginning, a leap into the unknown. As I pulled him closer, the city humming outside, I realized that this, whatever it was worth the risk. For the first time, I wasn't just falling. I was soaring. The kiss changed everything, but didn't erase the challenges. Lucas and I were navigating uncharted waters, and while the highs were electric, the lows were gut-wrenching. We were together, not officially, not labeled, but together in a way that felt real. Late nights on my rooftop, his hand in mine as we watched the city lights, felt like a dream. But reality has a way of creeping in. Lucas was still grappling with his identity. He'd never questioned his straightness before, and now he was diving headfirst into something society didn't make easy. I saw it in the way he tensed when we got too close in public, the way he'd hesitate before reaching for my hand. It wasn't shame. I told myself it was newness, fear of the unknown. But it hurt, and I hated that it did. One evening, at a friend's barbecue in Berkeley, the tension boiled over. We were surrounded by old college friends, people who knew us as the inseparable duo, not whatever we were now. Lucas was quieter than usual, sticking to small talk, his hand never straying near mine. When someone made a joking comment about us being attached at the hip, he laughed too loudly, and I felt a pang of rejection. Later, in the car, I couldn't hold it in. Are you embarrassed of me? I asked, my voice sharp. He looked stunned, his hands tightening on the wheel. No, Bent. It's not that, he said. I'm just figuring out how to do this. I don't know how to be this version of myself yet. His honesty disarmed me, but it didn't erase the sting. I need you to try harder, I said. Because I'm all in, Lucas. And I need to know you are too. He reached for my hand, his grip tight. I'm trying, he said. I promise. We drove in silence, but his hand never left mine, and I clung to that small gesture like a lifeline. The next month was a test. Lucas started coming to the community center with me, meeting Elena and the others, asking questions, listening to their stories. I watched him open up, his curiosity replacing his hesitation. One night, at a drag show fundraiser, he cheered louder than anyone, his arm around my shoulders, unafraid. It was a glimpse of the future I wanted, a future where we could be us, unapologetically. But the real turning point came on a rainy afternoon in my apartment. We were curled up on the couch, a movie playing in the background, when he turned to me, his eyes serious. "I told my family about us," he said. My heart stopped. His family was close-knit, traditional. I braced for the worst. And I asked. They were surprised, he said, a small smile tugging at his lips. "But they love me, and they want to meet you." Properly. Tears stung my eyes, and I pulled him into a hug, overwhelmed. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. It was love. Months later, at the community center's Pride event, we stood together in front of my mural, now a symbol of resilience for so many. Lucas's hand was in mine, his smile brighter than the June sun. "I'm proud of you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "And I'm proud of us." I looked at him, at the man who'd gone from my straight best friend to the love of my life, and I felt a peace I'd never known. The photo that had started it all, the accident that had nearly broken me, had led to this. To us. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And as we stood there, surrounded by laughter and love, I knew that whatever came next, we'd face it together. The journey had been messy, full of doubt and fear, but had also been beautiful. It taught me that love isn't about certainty or perfection. It's about showing up, taking risks, and choosing each other, even when the world makes it hard. Lucas and I weren't just a story of a mistake or a confession. We were a story of courage, of two people finding their way to each other against the odds. And that, I realized, was the truest kind of love.